Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1682. The topic is Q&A, and the title is Example of a Weekly Journal Communication with an Online Client. So one of the things I get to do that I absolutely love is get to work with other personal trainers. A personal trainer who is trying to make a transition from doing solely in-person work to blending with more online clients. I'm talking with them now. They're one of my business clients. So we do a weekly Zoom consultation. We talk about everything. And one of the questions they asked recently was, what do I do in regards to kind of how I communicate with my online clients each week? I have every client do a Google Doc, and this is just a Google document, live document. They can open it and enter anything they want 24/7, and then I go in and answer everything every week. I try to communicate as often as I can. My major goal is to try to do it every 5 days. Sometimes it's between 5 days, 7 days, but I try to get in there every week. I have all my clients. They have my cell phone number. They can text me if they need anything more immediate. But I wanted to give an example in today's podcast of a conversation that I had with one of my recent one-on-one clients. And this just gives some context as to what we do in those live journals. So that way that trainer, my business client, knows kind of how I manage it, and then they can kind of decide what they want to do with that. And then anybody who's interested in becoming a one-on-one client with me, an online client, you get to see kind of what it's like. What do we cover? What do we talk about? So for this client, I asked them, I said, hello, and then their name, but I'll skip their name. I said, how was this week? How were the workouts? They wrote, hey, Robert, so far, so good this week. I've been slow to the punch with the journal, so pardon the delay here. And I replied, no worries. It's here when you need it and want it, but it isn't meant to be a stressor for you. So I don't hound people. If I don't hear from somebody, in over a week, like 10 days, 14 days, I'll definitely reach out to them and see what's up. But it's definitely meant to be more of an availability thing rather than a burden. So they went on and they said that they did a new workout from the most recent program. So every 4 weeks, I write all my clients brand new programs, and they said that they did the first one, and they commented, I can already feel the different stimulus in my legs, i.e. glutes, hams, from the day one weight workout of the new program. I think the dumbbell walking lunge with glute focus was a big contributor to that. All good. So I wrote, it's awesome. It's fun to feel the new movements and how they can spark new feelings in muscles, even though you've been consistently training from week to week. So even though they've been training, they haven't taken any time off, but simply switching movements, it's good proof for the need and the benefit of getting new exercises, is because you can feel new nuances of soreness, new areas of the muscle being worked. It just helps to feel, like I told them, I said that's what I wrote, was it's good proof of the benefit and need for changing exercises. It's fun because some of the clients I work with, they might have been following the same program for months, and it just feels stale, stagnant, nothing new, boring. So when I send brand new programs every 4 weeks, it's exciting and it's fun, but it also is fun to see and feel the difference in the way the body responds. So that way you can understand, okay, I can understand why we do change exercise every 4 weeks, because it feels new, even though I've been consistently training. They then went on and asked about a certain exercise. So they said, with a dumbbell goblet hold squat with heels elevated, I feel the load up on this quite a bit. I start off with 50 pounds since it's the weight of the dumbbell I use with the other exercise in the circuit. I progressed to 70 pounds and still felt I could load up more. I'll continue to progress next week in weight. Part of the challenge with the goblet hold is actually holding the weight. I find it to work very well as a total body workout, upper and lower. So if you're not familiar with a goblet hold, what that means is you're going to take one dumbbell, and instead of holding the dumbbell horizontally, you're going to hold it vertically by the top head of the dumbbell. So you're the handle in the middle, then there's the two sides that have the weights. You're going to hold one of the sides at the top, the other side's just going to kind of hang underneath, so it's going to be a vertical hold, and you hold it in front of your body. So the reason why it's called a goblet hold is if you place your hands in front of you as if you're holding the top of like one end of the dumbbell, you're going to find that your wrists are kind of close together, your palms are pointing up to the ceiling, and it looks like you're almost making a cup with your hands, like a goblet. So that's the goblet hold. And they said that it was really cool that they could feel how much the upper body was involved. So I wrote back and I said, yes, this holding position is intended to add challenge to the upper back muscles as well as the core. It's a good whole body stimulus. If you find that weight required becomes too hard to get into position, which can happen when somebody's very strong, is you can slow your rep tempo by adding 1 second to your descent and 1 second to your ascent. So 1 second on the way down, 1 second on the way up. It can prolong the time under tension, which could be a form of progression from week to week. So if they can't add extra weight because they're like, holy crap, man, getting 70 pounds already in place is tough, then instead of going down and up, where maybe on the way down it's just 1, 2, and then on the way up, 1, 2. So it's like 1, 2, down, 1, 2, up, 1, 2, down, 1, 2, up. I'll have them slow down. So they'll do a 3 count. So 1, 2, 3, down. 1, 2, 3, up. So you slow the rep tempo, and that can be a form of progression. So maybe it's from weeks 1 to 2, they were able to add weight. 2 to 3, they added weight, but they're like, there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to add weight by week 4. So we just increase their rep tempo, like we slow it down, we add an extra count to it, and that's a form of progression due to the increased time under tension. So that was really cool. So that way they now know that the whole body stimulus of that movement was intentional and that if they have trouble moving up in weight, they can actually just slow down the rep tempo, and that's a form of progression. So that's good to know. Then they said, with the dumbbell walking lunge with glute focus and the dumbbell goblet hold squat circuit, I felt muscular tension in my lower back on my initial sets. Was this likely caused by poor form or just part of the workout? So I answered back and I said part of the workout. But it indicates we need to continue to prioritize abdominal strength. Our abdominal muscles, the rectus abdominis, obliques, etc., all play a role in supporting the stress load of the lower back muscles, the spinal erectors, quadratus lumborum, all those things. So tension in the low back indicates it's having to do the bulk of the work rather than it being shared across all muscles. If needed, we can lower the weight of the goblet squats and slow the rep tempo to lessen the weight load stress on the lower back. And then, as our abdominal muscles continue to strengthen over the course of our training, we'd be able to come back to a pairing like this, and we'd feel stronger with less isolated tension in the lower back. So we know going into this, one of the clients, one of their goals listed was to strengthen their core. So we know that that's a weak point, and it's a point that we do want to challenge. So a circuit like this does have challenge. Now, if we load it too heavy, that could be too much of a challenge. And that would be the same as any exercise. If you do any exercise too heavy and the form starts to break down, it's too much of a challenge, right? So you just lessen the weight load, you crisp up the technique a little bit, maybe, like we said, slow the rep tempo, get longer time under tension with lighter weight loads. You make the challenge appropriate for your current abilities, not in the sense that you don't challenge your current abilities, but you make sure that you're challenging them in a healthy way. And that's what we'll do with this client is, if they feel like the tightness, now they said in their initial sets, meaning it went away as they kind of got warmed up, if they loosened the muscles, as they got figured out better positioning. So maybe this next week they won't have any problem at all because they'll have figured out the better position for the different lifts. But if they were having problems with the lower back, we just lighten the weight load, we slow down the tempo, and then we know to come back to that in later programs just to recheck and see how we're doing, making progress with core strength. Then they moved on and they said for diet, I've still been doing a solid job here, being sure to hit my protein and calorie targets. As mentioned, my goal is to hit the majority of my targets by midday, so it gives me, number 1, more options for dinner, and number 2, reduces the pressure of having to cover a significant deficit at day's end. And I wrote, excellent. Great approach. I'm the same way. If I have a goal for the day, the earlier I address it, the less stress and the less pressure I feel throughout the day. So very good idea. Then he goes on, he has a question. He said, you recommend distributing protein intake evenly throughout the day, i.e. 40 grams for breakfast, 40 grams for lunch, 40 grams for dinner. Is there any negative consequences to intaking most of your protein volume before dinner and less at dinner? Great question. So I replied, you'd get less muscle repair throughout the night. That's basically the major downfall of if you don't have a good amount of protein coming in right before bed. So it says you'd get less muscle repair throughout the night. Our body repairs damaged tissue 24/7, with exception of during extremely high demand activity. During that time, its energy sources would be fully allocated to activity, not towards repairs. But since the body does have the ability to repair tissue at night if it has the protein available to do so, it's a good idea to take in a significant portion of protein prior to bedtime. How much depends on a lot of factors, but in general, the recommendation of consuming a third of your protein during the final third of being awake addresses most people's needs. One approach could be accounting for your carbs and fats prior to your last meal, and then making the last meal mostly protein, say chicken and vegetables. That would be a good way to reduce the volume at dinner, but still provide a good protein source for the nighttime. So I would definitely recommend not having, greater than 2/3 of your protein before the final 1/3 of the day. Because if during the final 1/3 of the day you only get maybe 25, 20, 15% of your protein, you're going to be underfed throughout the nighttime. You're not going to get enough protein at night. So one of the things I do when I'm trying to really push for muscle building, I actually drink a protein shake either right before I go to bed or in the middle of the night. So I usually I sleep on my stomach due to throat issues that from when I was an infant. They had to do surgery on my throat and stuff, so I have to sleep on my stomach. So when I sleep on my stomach, it puts pressure on your bladder. So I have to get up in the middle of the night to pee. So congratulations, I'm sorry that you now have to know that. But I have to get up in the middle of the night to go pee. So I actually, when I'm trying to really build muscle tissue and I'm working out super intense, I actually have a protein shake when I get up to go to the bathroom. So I'll drink 40 grams of protein. Now it's like a whey isolate drink. So there's 0 grams of fat, only 2 grams of carbs. It's pretty much only protein. I drink that and then I just go right back to bed. And that gives me another kind of amount of protein that my body can continue to use while I'm sleeping. I like that a lot. And I do feel that when I do that, I feel fuller, I feel better recovered, I just have less joint aches and pains when I'm very consistent with that. The only time I ever cut that is like if I'm super dieting and I don't want to get the calories, like maybe I want to eat like whole food before I go to bed. I'll eat more whole food, like slow digesting beef or steak, so that way it's prolonged digesting 8-12 hours while I'm sleeping, and I get to actually eat the food, eat the calories, then try to drink the calories. So that'll be a little bit of a change that I'll make from time to time. But I thought that was a great question, so that was my answer. Was it's good to kind of save some protein before bed, so that way your body can fix that stuff throughout the night. Okay. Then they go on a couple other things. So one of the things they wrote was if they lay on their stomach and extend their left leg straight, like 180 degrees, like full extension, they feel discomfort in the area behind the knee towards the left side. And they said they brought this up to their doctor. They recently went to their doctor and they asked if it could be a Baker's cyst. And the doctor, after feeling the area, said no. So the client said, I'm kind of not sure what it is. It's been like that for a long time. Although I don't recall when it started, I've been giving more attention recently. And he had a note, it is not caused by anything done with Big, so Brutal Iron Gym. It predates it. Any idea what this could be? So I sent him a stretch and a release for the popliteus. I don't even know how to say that muscle name, but it's a muscle, a small little muscle on the backside of your knee, and it's involved with stability of the knee. And since I have him doing walking lunges and a lot of unilateral work, that muscle might be strained and or tired. So it might be kind of flaring up. If it's already been there for a long time, it's probably on the edge of, weakness where it's almost always annoyed. It's just ever so slightly right across that edge. So if we started training and we started slightly annoying it, challenging it, it might be, saying, hey, I'm here, pay attention to me. So we're going to do a popliteus release and then a stretch, and then we're going to make sure that helps. If that issue were to become more significant, we would just decrease unstable or unilateral work, not eliminate it, but just decrease the volume of unstable and unilateral work. And that will help release some of the workload and stress on that popliteus muscle. So that's something we can try. So I sent him a release and a stretch. I want him to do that, see how it feels. If it does feel like that's the issue, then that lets us know that that's what we want to work on. Maybe we, just give it time, see if it strengthens. If it starts to be frustrating, like I said, we decrease the volume of unilateral work. If it's not that, then we will look into the hamstrings and adductors and just kind of the whole, backside of the thigh. But we're going to look up into the connection up into the glute. So I'll probably have him do some lacrosse ball rolling therapy up at the hamstring connector by the sit bones of your hip and see if we can kind of pry open some bound down tissue, and maybe that will help as well. So I'm going to see what he says to those releases and stretches that I sent him, and then we'll kind of work with that and figure that out as we go. Then he goes on and says on Monday he got a DEXA scan completed, which is something I asked if he would do, which was awesome. He included all the pages of the results into the journal. So I said, exciting. And I got to read through it. So then I shared my thoughts after reading through the DEXA scan. So his resting metabolic rate, his RMR, it was calculated at 2,088 calories. So I said, this is helpful in that we have a number value for your baseline metabolism. RMR accounts for only around 70% of your total daily calorie needs. Normal movement, since you're not going to lay in bed all day, you're going to get up and move around, it accounts for roughly 10 to 15%. Thermic effective food, which is how many calories your body burns during burns to digest the foods you eat, it can account for roughly 5 to 10%. And then extra activity above baseline, like exercise, walking around the mall, etc., adds on top of all of that. So 2,088 would be the lowest we'd ever want to be for that fat loss, as it would absolutely put you in a deficit, no worries. And if you go below that, the body starts to kind of have a lot of responses, protective responses, that make it challenging to lose body fat later on, and you have a higher rate of regaining the body fat. So you don't want to typically go too far below the RMR or the BMR. You want to stay at that to lose weight. And then I wrote that roughly that 2,088 plus 15% would be typically around maintenance level calories. And then above that, you would start to be enough to actually gain muscle tissue. So I said this is helpful to know if we wanted to refine what you're eating to ensure we're around the 2,088 plus 15% as your bottom line amount on non-training days, with maybe around 2,088 plus 20 to 25% for training days to ensure you're properly fueled and having proper nutrients for recovery and progressive adaptation. So that's very helpful to know. Then his body fat was also, it came back at 20.3% body fat, and I said that's good. This would be considered okay to stay at if the person's blood work is all within normal ranges, if they feel happy with their balance of activity, performance, aesthetics, and lifestyle, meaning they are achieving performance that they want in their workouts. They look good, for what they're happy with, and they don't feel overly stressed with the cleanness or strictness of their nutrition. As we continue to work together, your muscle mass will increase and your body fat will go down. Likely your weight will come down as well, but weight change alone won't give the full picture of the changes happening. So it's great to have the DEXA scan to see in the future how much muscle we've built and how much fat we've lost. Given all of the goals we've started with, holding around 16 to 20% body fat would be great, in that we wouldn't be overly restricting our nutrition to the point of not being able to achieve all of our strengthening and muscle gain goals. So we can double check our daily foods and see if we're within ranges listed above of that 2,088 plus 15% to 2,088 plus 25%, which puts them roughly between 2,400 to 2,600 calories. And that's a minimum then of 180 grams of protein, because that's related to their lean muscle tissue mass. So it's super helpful to know DEXA scan stuff, because not only do we get to know like the BMR, the RMR, like basal metabolic rate and resting metabolic rate, are basically the same thing. But the RMR, we get to know that. We get to know kind of the baseline of calories they need just to sustain life. And then we also get to see body fat percentage. We get to see body muscle tissue distribution, if they're like really dominant on one side versus the other, anything like that. And then also we can compare scans, every 3 months or 6 months to see, okay, how much muscle tissue am I gaining? How much body fat am I losing? Where it might not show on the scale alone. If you gain 2 pounds of muscle tissue, you lose 6 pounds of fat, you're only going to see 4 pounds of weight change difference on a scale. But you won't see that you've gained 2 pounds of muscle and lost 6 pounds of fat. You're only going to see 4 pounds of weight change difference. So DEXA scans are great. They're usually like $100 or less. It's actually not too expensive for what it is. But DEXA scans are great for getting an idea of what is truly happening other than what you can see on a weight scale. Weight scales are not great indicators of progress in any way. So DEXA scan is much, much better. Cool. Now, we have a couple more things I'll kind of read fast, but I do want to give the full picture of this is all within a normal weekly communication with my clients. This is all stuff we cover all the time. So they went on and they said, yesterday I wasn't able to complete my entire workout. I was under pressure time-wise, and they wrote, some various stuff they had to kind of balance in life. So they said, I knew I wouldn't have enough time to complete the workout before I began. But I wanted to make sure I did something. I could hear your voice in my head saying, something is better than nothing, and that it all adds up. 2 things that you've said in your podcast. And hell yes. Yes. That's actually what I wrote in my response. I said, I'm glad you still went in and got something in. The workouts they missed, like the exercises they missed, were machine leg curls and eggshell deadlifts. They really, he said, I was really looking forward to doing them. I'll have to get them this week for the next round. And I wrote, it's a bummer to miss certain movements, and often, unfortunately, they can't be made up. If that's the case, you just pick up the next week where you left off in your progressions and try your best. So, for example, let's say week 1, you have 3 sets of 7 to 8 reps. Week 2 is 3 sets of 6 to 7 reps. Week 3 is 3 sets of 5 to 6 reps. Week 4 is 3 sets of 4 to 5. So to make this more simple, week 1 is 8, week 2 is 7, week 3 is 6, week 4 is 5. So the idea is you go down a rep to allow you to go up in weight from week to week to week. So let's say the person missed week 2. In week 3, they're still going to aim for what's prescribed for week 3. But they're going to use their week 1 numbers as a guideline to learn what weight to pick. So they're basically just going to skip week 2 if you missed week 2 and just pick right up where they're at, which is in week 3. So it's unfortunate, but sometimes we do miss exercises due to chaos and whatnot. You just skip that week, you pick right back up the next week with everything else in the program. And then the last thing they wrote was cameras in the gym. I need to start video recording to send you videos for form checking. I listened to your recent podcast and it was a reminder. I historically do not bring my phone into the gym and have taken it as a time to get away from it. But it will be the means for you to coach my technique remotely, so I need to get it going. I actually recorded a set the other day during a squat warm-up, but my camera angle sucked. I'm working on it, LOL. So I wrote back. I understand the desire to detach from your phone, but yet it is what we need for filming. So often clients will put their phones on Do Not Disturb to block pop-ups and notifications, but yet still have it available for filming. I actually have the sound off of my phone, except for when my wife calls. So I have her number set to go through and always make a sound, but I always have my phone turned off, like there's no sounds on my phone anymore. And I turned off all notifications, and again, except for my wife. So when she messages me on Instagram or something, that'll show up. But unfortunately, I apologize to everyone else. Nothing else does. So I turned off all my notifications, and I turn off all my sounds. And that helps me feel like a release from my phone. But I still have it on me when I need it, in case my wife ever needs me. My wife actually, like Meredith, she actually laughed the other day. I had my ringer on because we were expecting a phone call for like medical stuff, and they called, and when my ringtone went off, Meredith actually laughed because she's like, I had no clue what your ringtone sounded like. Like in the 3+ years we've known each other, that might be the first time she's ever heard my ringtone. So I really I I have my phone off all the time on sound, and I have all my notifications turned off. So that way, when I want to see everything, I can see everything, but it doesn't distract me when I'm in like work modes or when I'm in like grooves of work, and it doesn't distract me when I'm working out. That way I can use my phone to write in notes for training. I can use my phone to record myself if I want to see some things on how I'm moving, but there's nothing that pops up and kind of takes me away from the moment. So I really urge people to use like Do Not Disturb, try to turn your sounds off, all that stuff, so that way you can stay focused. But that's an example of a normal weekly communication with my online clients. They write in kind of how they're feeling energy-wise, what they've been going on with their food, how they've been doing with their training. They would add, videos. Some of my clients send videos directly through Google Drive. Some of them send them via email. Some of them send them to me on Instagram or Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. A lot of my international clients use WhatsApp. And then I'll go in there and I'll look through the videos and I'll write the responses, like the feedback, in their weekly journal, that Google Doc. But this is how I manage it. It is, from what I understand, it is much more in depth than most other trainers do, which is why I have a cap, and I've had to re-emphasize on that myself over and over and over again because I have a hard time saying no. But I have to continually refine the cap I have on one-on-one clients, and that's why we also started doing the live monthly programming service, because I was getting overextended with one-on-one clients, but people still wanted help with programming. So we created that live monthly programming to give everybody great programming every 4 weeks, and then they have a group Q&A document. So I just go into that document one time a week, answer everybody's questions, and I move on. And it's a great way for me to help people in bulk. That makes it cheaper for each person, but they still get to ask personal questions and do some one-on-one stuff. So I love this kind of stuff. This is my favorite way of doing things. Is I never, in my opinion, this is just my personal choice, is I wanted to make a significant difference for people. So I wasn't interested in working with 1,000 people, but just sending programming and then never having one-on-one communication. I like the one-on-one aspect. I like the ability for people to actually ask questions and get personalized answers, not bullshit kind of generic answers, but actually personalized answers. So that way, you get the one-on-one attention. You get exactly what you need. You can actually get the benefit of the service that you want, which is what people really want, is they want to be able to, if I'm supposed to eat these healthy foods, how do I make this work financially? How do I make it work in my schedule? What if I don't like these foods? What if I need to make changes in this way? And I want people to feel that they can ask those questions and get that personalized help. So this is an example. So for my business client, my personal trainer client, this is what I do with my online clients, which I absolutely love. They all seem to love it. Everybody's happy. So this is a good example of what I do. And if you have any questions or follow-up or anything, just shoot me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you're interested in the services that we do offer, you can check that out on our website at www.brutalirongym.com. Awesome. Okay, well, if you like today's podcast, please share it. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. That's the whole point of the podcast, is just to help as many people as we can. Thank you to those who donate to support the podcast. It does have a high hosting cost on all the different podcast platforms. I really appreciate the financial help so I can continue to do this every single day and have it not make too bad of business sense. So I appreciate it, and I love doing it, and I thank you for the donations that they help cover the cost to make it more reasonable. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and please follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.